The Corporation Law Committee of the Ohio State Bar Association is the keeper of the Ohio Code. Let's talk with their chairman about their newest creation, Senate Bill 181. Thank you for joining us today, and it's a real pleasure for us to have with us Jeff Wahl, chairman of the Corporation Law Committee for the Ohio State Bar Association. And Jeff, really glad to let the world know that, per usual, the Corporation Law Committee has done some great work and just recently enacted Senate Bill 181 through the legislative process, and the governor just recently signed it. Wanted to have you come in today. Tell us a little bit about what does Senate Bill 181 do?
Well, thanks, Todd. Pleased to be here. And so Senate Bill 181 really affects two parts of the corporate code. The first is what we call General Corporation Law, Chapter 1701, where we add in fiduciary duty provisions for officers of corporations. And then the second piece of it deals with LLCs and does the same officer duty provisions for LLCs generally, but then makes some other important changes in the LLC Act, 1705.
Before we get too much into the LLC Act, the fiduciary duty part. I always remember from law school fiduciary duties for the directors of corporations. What provoked this fiduciary duties for officers?
So there's been a long time gap, right, in Ohio's corporate code and, frankly, several other states, where directors are addressed with a detailed framework with what are the duties and then what are the consequences of not fulfilling those duties. There was absolute silence on officers. I mean, we had an Ohio case or two that kind of generally said officers have the same duties as directors, and that's what everybody basically assumed. But this was a chance to go ahead and put that framework in place so everybody knows exactly how it works. It was driven in part by us looking around at the state of the country and seeing more and more derivative lawsuits and officers more and more frequently being named and alleged to breach their fiduciary duties, and watching officers around the country not sure what that meant, and judges not sure what that meant.
Yeah, so was it kind of a reaction a little bit to the economic downturn of 2008 and just the rise of these lawsuits?
Well, there's certainly an uptick as as the economy goes down. One way to find dollars is, plaintiff law firms suing.
Sure.
And everybody's looking at everything harder. And it's also just the nature of, I think, where we're going, right? There's more and more corporate litigation each year, I'd say.
Is this more of a trend than kind of nationally, too? We're seeing this same type of approach?
Yes, this was not an Ohio-specific trend by any means. This was something we've observed nationally.
Okay, so that's the one part of the bill. The other part dealt more specifically with LLCs. What were just some of the changes relating to LLC frameworks?
So for LLCs, there's really four things this act does. The first is it installs the officer concept for LLCs that was not in the statute, and imposes the same kind of fiduciary duty framework that we use in the corporate context. The next important piece was there has been, for the last several years, a default duty for members of an LLC that they not compete with the business of the LLC. I mean, that was
makes sense. Yeah.
Put in 2012, and that's caused some consternation among passive investors.
Ooh.
And so that default non-competition duty has been removed. Then the third one, which I think is probably maybe the biggest news out of Senate Bill 181, is now in Ohio law, an LLC can, by its operating agreement, modify, waive, or fully eliminate fiduciary duties for members, managers, and officers, or any combination thereof. And the last one was a change to bolster an LLC's corporate veil, if you will. You've heard the concept piercing the corporate veil.
Sure.
Well, we added a provision to the LLC Act that says a failure to follow all the formalities of the entity doesn't necessarily lead to, it's not a factor to be used in piercing the corporate veil, and it's not a basis for piercing the corporate veil.
Okay, so strengthen LLCs a little bit more in that respect.
Yes.
I know that this bill is important to the Corporation Law Committee. Glad to see it enacted. I also know that by most estimates, 90% of the corporate code comes from your committee and the changes to it. Look into the future a little bit. What are some of the things that your committee is working on that practitioners could expect to see in the near future?
Sure. Probably the thing most clearly on the horizon is some amendments regarding benefit corporations.
Okay.
That's been a movement around the country to allow a for-profit corporation to also have kind of a plank of their mission be nonprofit or charitable in nature. Sometimes these are referred to as social purpose or social benefit corporations. So we've got some amendments worked through the Bar Association process that are looking for a home at the State House and to move through.
But yeah, we're working with some representatives now to do that, and it looks like over 30-some states now have this type of approach in place. Is that right?
That's correct. Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Anything else you guys got covered?
Well, in general, the General Assembly is quite interested in streamlining and making more business-friendly or pro-business or more common sense all of the business entity statutes. And so we're taking a look at LLCs and corporations just in general to see what else can be modified and made more business-friendly in our statutes.
Well, per usual, you guys are staying busy, which keeps me busy, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate you talking with us today and give us an update on 181, Senate Bill 181, and also some of the things we can expect in the near future. Thanks.
You're welcome. Thanks.
I want to thank the chairman for being with us today. Jeff Wahl does a great job for the Corporation Law Committee, for himself, and for all the members of the OSBA. And I ask you to be on the lookout for upcoming episodes where we focus on benefit corporations as well as the LLC changes that Chairman Wahl discussed.